It's the midweek edition of Business Morning. Welcome to the program. I'm Chimeze Obi Iwago. It's 1 year now since the Nigerian land borders were closed to its West African neighbors. Nigeria abruptly shut its borders with Benin Republic in August 2019. Not satisfied with the outcome, it extended the ban to the land trade with all its neighbors in October. It's 1 year now and just 4 months to the takeoff of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. Will the border remain closed? What has been the benefits and setbacks? I'm being joined by a trade expert, Mr. John Isemede. Good morning. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Isemede.
Good morning. Thank you.
Now, the objective of the border closure was to curb smuggling and cross-border criminal activities. Would you say this objective has been achieved?
Thank you very much. Before we go to border closure, or border itself, let us first of all educate viewers, because there are 6 different types of borders. So to just say border, people will not understand. First and foremost, let me appeal to Mr. President. This is my 2nd time. When the border was closed a year ago, I came up and put the position of the organized private sector that the President should reconsider reopening the border. The private sector has equally lent their voice to what I've said. And this morning again, I'm appealing to Mr. President for 2 major reasons. One, we are the landlord or the host of the ECOWAS Secretariat in Abuja. From 1975 to the present day, we are talking of 45 years. Because of issues like this, we have not really gained being the landlord of the ECOWAS. And we know, if you look at ECOWAS agreement, there are so many things under the protocol of free movement and all that. ECOWAS is now moving towards what we call the custom union. And under the agreement we have signed, free trade area, common external tariff, custom union, and free market. And the free market now will now dovetail into the Africa Continental Free Trade. And if you look at, for what to now say free custom union is free trade plus CET, that is common external tariff, which we have signed into. The meeting started in Niamey in 2006, which is, it took us about 12 years before we were able to achieve that. And for us keeping the secretariat and closing the border, which some of us have benefited so much in the past because I was export manager for about 20 years. The last one is that just this week, the Continental Free Trade office was opened in Ghana. And we cannot close our border because this is a country where we have no national carrier. That is the Nigerian Airways we met from 1979 to 1999, we had 35 aircraft. Today, we have nothing. And when the Nigerian National Shipping Line was liquidated in 1987, today we have no vessel. So the only hope we have to engage our members, to engage others in Africa, now is the land border. And if the land border is closed, whether we have signed the Africa Continental Free Trade, we have signed, whether we have not ratified, we are just like students now in the same class. We are going to take the same exam. So it is better for Mr. President to listen to the private sector and reopen the border.
All right. Now, looking at what is currently going on in Ghana, we had a conversation about that yesterday, how the Ghanaian authorities are harassing Nigerian traders in Ghana. And there's a lot of speculation that what's happening in Ghana could be like a retaliatory tendency over this border closure. The Ghanaians are not happy about that.
I strongly disagree with you. I will take that. Let me, the issue of borders. If you look at border issues, there are 6 different types of borders in the world. One that we don't actually work with is what we call militarized or demilitarized borders. The old, during the war, Germany break into 2, East and West. It was in 1988 that East Germany now later joined. it was a different border like what we now have in the European Union. So because we have to restrict ourselves to ECOWAS, let's not go to South Korea and North Korea. When you say a free border, it does not mean that the border is free, like what we have in the European Union. When Britain was pulling out of the European Union, some of us were laughing, because if Britain was part of the mainland, like Germany and France, it could have been a little bit difficult, even if you look at the Lisbon Agreement. A free border does not mean that there is no documentation. A man from Germany today is in Belgium, there are records. The only difference is that if I fly from here to Germany, and from there to France, it now becomes a local. But if I fly from here to Ghana, and from Ghana again I want to go to Sierra Leone, from one international airport and all that, there's still ceremony if I'm not on transit. That is a free border. When you now talk of the type of border we sign into in West Africa, if you ask the head of immigration, what we have is a simple border, what we call soft border. I can wander into Benin Republic. That does not mean that I should be deported, because we have agreement. Cameroon was once part of West Africa, but not part of ECOWAS. But because of the bilateral agreement, I don't need a visa into Cameroon. I don't need a visa into Chad. But a Beninois needs a visa into Chad. There was a time we were talking about single currency here. That Nigerian currency is different from that of Chad, but they can interchange. That is a soft border. A normal border is that I can take my passport and move to Kenya, Tanzania and all that, and get a visa at the point of entry. But when you now talk of a hard border, you talk of US, where they ask you, South Korea, South Africa, your bank account, who are you going to meet, and so on and so forth. But in West Africa, if we first of all know the type of border, we have a soft border. And some of these towns and villages are not separated by walls, because these are separated by imaginary lines. Let us look at our neighbor, Benin Republic. Benin Republic and Nigeria speak the same 10 dialects together, Yoruba, Igbo, and all that. So demarcation is difficult. And from Seme border to the border in the north, around Ilol and Kamba, 770 kilometers. If you now add these two languages plus English and French, making 12. So we are still our brothers. And it is not the private sector that is designed to manage borders. If you now take it from there, because 6 states of Nigeria borders Benin Republic, and 7 borders Niger, because Kebbi State has border with Benin, so also has border with Niger Republic. Then if you look at the other side, Borno State, which is the second largest in the country, has border with Chad. No, it's not a direct border, because Nigeria does not have a direct border with Chad. We have 87 kilometers of land, because around Kukara to this, you have land, not straight into Lake Chad. Then from there to Bakassi area, you are talking of 1,690 kilometers. We have a coastline of 850 kilometers. Take that and compare with the border between Canada and the US, which is 8,891 kilometers. With a population of 200 million, we cannot manage our borders. I am speaking on behalf of the private sector, not that there are no issues. Have we been able to demarcate this border and put equipment and those who are found wanting who cannot manage? Because if you look at it from Benin Republic to Kamba, we have Seme, then we have Owode Oniri, you have Bukori in Kwara, and so on and so forth. So these are issues of border. When you now talk of the issue of Ghana, the greatest problem we have in this country is that we are not using our best 11. As a citizen of ECOWAS, I worked in Ghana for 15 years. I didn't have issues. I work in Benin. The companies I work for were all registered companies. And these things we are talking, they are not new to me, because there was a time I engaged Dr. Agaga, who was the Minister of Trade at that time, for more than 3 months. Even Dr. Womobi was the Minister, PAMSEC Foreign Affairs. We have Indians in Ghana. We have Lebanese in Ghana and other people. Why are those people not being attacked? The way we are being attacked, I am not comfortable with it. I went to Ghana, I wrote a letter. I met who and who are to meet. And I told them, what do you want Nigerians to do? That we should register company. But on our own, what have we been able to do on our own part to protect our people. We have Indians doing businesses here. We have the Chinese coming in here with the concept of Chinatown. What I came up with is that let Nigerians, under the diaspora arrangement, 1,000 Nigerians can register company. If you go to Apapa, there are Asians operating from one room. This modern day, pursuing Nigerians out of Ghana is not the solution to the problem. You cannot separate Nigerians from Ghana. Even when we had problems during the military, when Nigeria was being pushed out of the Commonwealth, President J.J. Rowley Ghanaians stood by us. And when we are playing football in Ghana, it seems as if we are playing our brothers. How many Nigerian students you have in Ghana? How many Nigerian investors? Most of the companies in Ghana are owned by Nigerians. So the issue of Ghana pursuing us, Ghana not pursuing us, let us now come through the diaspora office, put a structure in place. We have military school training soldiers. How many Nigerian soldiers have been humiliated outside this country? We have police institute. We have customs. Who is training the Nigerian investor? That people just move out of this country under the spirit of ECOWAS. You think that if you open a kiosk, that Ghanaian, because there are certain jobs not allowed in this client. It's not in Nigeria, where a foreigner, he comes into your house, is this and that. You go to companies, people who have no resident permit. When I went to Ghana, I was asked to get a resident and a job permit. All my records were with the police and the immigration. In Benin Republic, the same thing. Despite the proximity to Benin Republic, the border was open. I was more or less staying in my house in Lagos because it's 100 kilometers from my house in Lagos to Benin. I still had the resident and job permit. So these are the things that we need to educate our people. Finally, when we are sending out ambassadors, how many career ambassadors do we send? How do they interfere with the private sector? Today we are talking of Incoterm 2020. Before, in other countries, you have ambassadors, you trade attaches. Where are the trade attaches in the Nigerian embassy? There was a time I had an India High Commissioner who came to Nigeria. He was given a target. He was given 40 billion to make in 3 years in Nigeria. Within 2 years, he made the 4 billion. And he was recalled back home to go and take a bigger responsibility. Our ambassador, what is their role? There was a time they said our embassy was broken down in Ghana. I wanted to go and see some of my contemporaries in Ghana. How did we get to this level that our best brother has to move, put the Vienna Convention of 1961, then even the Convention of 1963, where the ambassador is the marketing manager. All those conventions are there. And now, what targets are we giving to the diaspora? So also, do we have linkages? So the spirit of ECOWAS is there. Let us not sweep that. But we claim to be giants, and we are not following the rules. But that does not mean that the average Nigerian, I can count the number of Nigerian companies in Ghana, and they are doing well. Nobody is pushing them.
Okay, let's get back to this issue of border closure. How would you assess the impact, on the Nigerian economy in the past 1 year? And I remember that the ECOWAS had to intervene in that matter. Just wondering what the outcome
ECOWAS has to intervene, but I am not comfortable with that level of intervention. That does not mean that ECOWAS will come to Nigeria and say, do this. It's an association. It's through moral suasion. The first thing is that when the issue of border closure came up, because what I'm so worried is that between 1983 and the presidency, I've suffered border closure 5 times. And most of the people who are saying that it's good is this. They have never been to the border. We cannot use European standards and American standard on our own. I can give you all the border points based on my research in 1990. Marketing down the lane.
I wish we have that time
so we have the time.
to deal with
so
that.
when you now talk of border closure, some came out and said, businesses. I want to give you one example. Do you know there are more than 50,000 Nigerian students in Benin Republic? It's not that there are no schools here. What of those whose parents established? What of those working in the embassy? And what of those who are serving outside this country and it's easier for them to connect Benin Republic? That is why we have large number of students. Now, work is going on. I'm yet to find out whether the Nigerian International School, Benin Republic, is doing work. So some who are saying that is of great benefit. CBN came up and said border closure will benefit Nigeria. There are no records to show. If the border closure has benefited Nigeria, as at the time the border was closed, it was $305 to 1 naira. Now it's 480. And CBN placed about 45 items, saying that it is what you call it, no forest allocation.
Absolutely.
And if you look at the ECOWAS convention, based on what we signed in Mali, what we signed in Benin, in Niger in 2006, there are rules that even if we are to adopt the common external tariff, they have to have 4 bands. And we argue, Nigeria being the giant, and we control about 60% of the population, and 70% of the market, there should be 5. 1 is 0%, which is primary produce and all that. So even when the border is closed, it's against the spirit of ECOWAS, because non-processed goods, based on the agreement we signed, are free to circulate freely. So if CBN said they went, what are the reasons they gave? Smuggling of rice. And we're consuming about 3 million metric tons of rice. We are producing about 3 million. And our consumption was 7 million. Today, what have they given to us? When they were supporting rice production, were they supporting the entire value chain? Because it takes 5 months to cultivate rice and harvest. If you now look at the first level, which is the farmer, which they have supported they supported the processors? What of the MDA responsible for destoning and all that? Then the final analysis, those who claim that the border closure has benefited them, where are the processors and those who are producing the packaging material, the polypropylene, that now say that this? So the issue of central bank and all that, it can take me a whole day. Then the second level is that of customs. In 1990, customs was moved from Ministry of Trade and Investment into finance as a revenue generation agency instead of a trade facilitator. Within this 1 year we are talking, has customs invested heavily on equipment? Because why we are crying foul is that we don't have the equipment to compete. We are talking of a single window in import and export. If you go to Europe and other places, you can identify products in our market now today from South Africa. If we now claim that Benin Republic is breaking the container, based on the picture I've painted, there's what we call littoral state. Nigeria is a littoral state. You cannot carry a container from Benin Republic into Nigeria. You cannot carry a container from Benin to Togo. Every country has what we call foreign policy. We have a foreign policy. We have a foreign policy objective.
So for you now,
do we have a foreign policy objective tied to trade?
Mr. Semede, for you now, you think it's time for the government
it's time
to open
I
up
have
the
come
border?
here to beg Mr. President and the National Assembly, because we host the ECOWAS Secretariat, and the major aim of ECOWAS is trade. And we have signed the Continental Free Trade. We don't even have the soft or the equipment to compete. And if we now talk of benefit, what has been the benefit of the closure? So if customs say they are benefiting, what of the export side of it? For you to say balance of trade, balance of payment, it is not one side. Have we invested heavily in Apapa port? So the last one is the MDAs, they have their responsibility. What and what? Have we invested in airline business? Are we in port modernization? Then those who came on air, why are they crying now that they want to import maize? So, Mr. President and the National Assembly, give us a second chance. Open the border.
All right, open the border. That's where we're going to leave this conversation, but we'll continue to talk about it because I think it's a huge issue there until something is done. Mr. John Isemede is a trade expert. We'll take a break now, and when we come back, we'll look at the implications of the rain cessation on food security. Just stay with us. Well, the Lagos State government recently alerted residents that the state will experience more heavy rains by end of August into September and October. Now, this follows Nigerian Meteorological Agency forecasting its 2020 seasonal rainfall prediction, SRP, early in the year that Lagos State will experience a rainy season of 240 to 270 days, with more rains expected in September and October. Now, the agency predicted in the SRP report that the onset of the growing season expected to be near normal to earlier than normal in most parts of the country. It forecasts earliest onset date likely to October on February 24 around coastal zone of South states, while Sokoto, Kebbi, Zamfara, Katsina, Jigawa, Yobe, and Borno are likely to have their onset from June 2. On a cessation, a normal to later than normal cessation is expected across the country. The earliest cessation date of around September 26 is expected around Katsina and northern parts of Sokoto for more than 5 weeks now. Most parts of the country, particularly the southwest, have not had rain, and this, many agriculturists say, have implications for food security in Nigeria. To throw more light on this, I'm being joined by the chairman, Agric and Agro Allied Group of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mr. African Farmer Mogaji. Thank you very much, Mr. African Farmer, for joining us on the show.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it surprised me that for more than 5 weeks now, we have not seen rain. Naturally, July, we experience heavy rain, but we've not seen, that happen. For me, that's very strange. Is that a warning for some kind of food insecurity? Are we going to have some kind of food scarcity in the future?
It's likely. It's likely because when we had, prior to that, the break in the rain, we had like 2 weeks downpour every day.
Absolutely.
From experience, what happens after that kind of prolonged downpour is an early August, what we used to know as early August break. And from experience, it normally spans around a month to 6 to 7 weeks. And so, yes.
Naturally, the break, we're supposed to have it in August.
Yeah, but
what they call August break or
in the last like 8 years, it's not been regular due to climate change that we've not paid attention to, that most planning doesn't pay attention to climate change. We still plan as if everything is normal. So we don't bring climate change into the equation. So, yeah, there may be a challenge. And, this is our main rain season in Southwest. And as you move to, like Niger State is also witnessing the same. Kogi is having the same challenge. I still spoke with the farmers in Kaduna. They are having it better, but the rain is not regular. I spoke to Gombe today. It's not regular also.
Well, from what the forecast is saying, in the future, perhaps in September, they're going to have some kind of cessation there.
Yes, so the challenge, they are going to have it.
And now what happens because we have most of our food coming in, from the north?
That's where I question the ban on the grains, because the forecast was released in February. So if a decision to place a ban or to restrict some movement, we need to pay attention to that. So if the northeast and core, and north central and core have the same issues Southwest is having now, then there's a clear and present challenge ahead of us. So if they have that, we may be in for some rocky ground.
Now, does that mean that some of these data that is being churned out, for NIMET, of course, this is a projection. It's expected that the government should work with it. Is it that we don't consider that in our policy making?
Agencies generally in the country, and I'll speak for agriculture, they don't work together. And I use the word they don't work together because when you see a policy come out and the practitioners know that this agency has come out with this information, the meteorological agency have their data, the river basins have functional meteorological stations. So if they work with this document to know, yes, so some agencies, they are funding them to produce maize and some other grains. But if you pay attention to the data given out in February, you will know the timing in which you should bring out these policies, this initiative. So if you bring it out ahead of time, this is what you have. But I don't see them working together because every time there's a ban, we industry experts come to say, good initiative, bad timing. They don't use that data.
Now, what food commodities and subsectors of the agri sector would this situation be affecting the most?
It's likely to be affecting almost everything, especially our grains, which is the key product. You were talking about rice. So take, for instance, CBN has given Anchor Borrowers funds to farmers. So the farmers who took the funds in the Southwest.
So that would also have implications.
It has implications. So, and that's why we need to engage all the parastatals, all the government agencies. So rice, maize, the current ban. So the Southwest maize farmers, it's affecting their planting season. So they expect rain to stop around October. They expect to have like 3 months rain. So we're not likely to have. So soya, maize, yams also. It affects the production and harvesting because the lands it's hard now. So across, cassava is just the only crop that is likely to go free. And what we call Benin seed, reedy, system seed, that does well in very adverse climates. So yeah, almost everything is likely
And
to be
obviously, this will have implications for inflation.
Oh,
For the
definitely.
price of food going up.
Definitely. It's already going up. It's already going up. So, and we need to have like national policies around irrigation. I did some studies in India last year, and there was a national policy to make irrigation available to rural farmers. So we need, government and the private sector to come together again, like we did for COVID.
Okay, so do we really have strategic reserve for, storing these food items?
That's a jam question.
Well, you got to
Because
answer.
we don't have enough of the silos. We don't have enough. And I've not seen any visionary leadership to say that, okay, we want to increase the grain reserves by X tons in the next 4 or 5 years. That influence, it cascades down. So our silos, I would say this because our silos are practically, some of them are empty. Some of them are empty because when they concessions some of those silos out, it was meant for the people who got it to go and grow the cereals and fill the silos up. But many of the people who got those silos didn't even know about agric at all. So they wanted to start clearing lands in June with heavy equipment. When that won't work. So we need to have a new vision to say this, for maize we need X tons, for this we need X tons. How many silos do we need? So the silos currently that we have, if the grains are filled up, the poultry farmers won't be crying out.
Because of the ban,
because the ban, they should
the
just
ban of the
release
maize
those.
importation,
Yeah, they should just release from the silos the reserves. So we don't have reserves for almost everything, and that's where I have concern. If it doesn't rain for 5 weeks in Northeast and in Kaduna especially, Saminaka, then we have an issue at our hands.
Now, what precautionary measures are the farmers taking on their own or can take on their own?
It's to reduce their production. That's what they do. That's what they do. And that's what it's currently happening.
That, again, has its implications.
Yeah, so COVID slowed them down from going to the farm. Now it's not raining. So because there's no adequate system, working with them when there are challenges like this. So what they do is they don't want to embrace more losses, so they have to just withdraw. So instead of doing like 20 acres, 100 acres, and for the smallholder farmers, 10 acres, they just do 1 acre. So it affects the yield, the productivity, and the things we have at the end of the day.
Yeah. Now, there have been, again, predictions of widespread flooding in the country in a few months to come. There are 28 states have been identified as prone to flooding. First, what is the degree of the accuracy or reliability, of this prediction? We've seen Lagos State already is warning, the residents of the upcoming flood.
Yes, so the trend from experience also in the agri sector is when you have these long spells of not having rainfall. What comes, especially in September, you're going to have very heavy downpours. And when you have that downpours, it gives, so the prediction, it gives heavy rainfall. The prediction is near or almost very accurate because we're expecting the downpour and the farmers also will reduce their production.
So does this also pose any risk to food security in the country?
Definitely. When you have, when you check the states that have that potential flood coming in, they are key. Niger, Benue. That river spills off. So when you check, the river basins all connect across the country. It's either it's moving from one to another one, taking it, you know. So bottom line is that most of the river basin projects work on these low plains. When the floods come in, they also cannot go to the farm early to start production in October. It will move to November. So it's an interwoven thing. It's a value chain also that we need to begin to pay attention
What about the issue of insecurity, particularly in the north?
You know, all these issues are there. We need some practical economic reform that really gets this done. And what do I mean by that? We need to get agri experts who can operate with policy and also have business experience to come in to bring out policies. But guess what? The insecurity is affecting the north more, and the recent challenges coming in Kaduna is going to affect the grain value chain and supply.
Where does research come into play here?
Research helps you, and even we need to begin to look at mapping our lands. You engage technologies, satellites, who will show you history of 10 years. You know, there are organizations that can do that in the country now. So we need more technology than what we're doing currently to be able to map, to say, okay, this is the rainfall pattern in the next 10 years, and how can we get it done? But this is done through satellites because it's almost close to or very accurate.
Okay. So what should the government be doing at the moment?
One, we need to begin to have new conversations around visioning. What do we want? How do we want it? And to get clear documents, we want to produce X, Y, and we need people with relevant experience to champion this. Then two, we need to employ technology to be able to map enough of the way we're doing agri 60 years ago. There's just little difference 60 years after.
All right, thank you very much for your time, Mr. African Farmer Mogaji, the chairman, Agric and Agro Allied Group of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce. Thank you very much.
Thank you for
being
having
part of
me.
the show. Okay, let's cross over now to Temple for update and a review of the equities market yesterday. Temple.
Yes, Chimaze, thank you so much. Let's talk about stocks now and rest it on the food, as we've discussed with Mr. African Farmer. Now, yesterday we were able to rise by some 0.02%, thanks to what we saw on the banking stocks yesterday, which contributed massively to what we have in the market. 66.22% of the entire total market turnover we had yesterday came from investors' interest in the tier 1 names. Now, yesterday we added 2 billion naira to what we have in the equity capitalization of the exchange. So that leaves us in the 13 trillion naira territory for equity capitalization. We look at the volume of transactions, which was positive yesterday by some 68%. It's as a result of some of the gains that we saw in Zenith Bank, which rose by some 30 basis points. And of course, 32 million units of its shares was traded yesterday. So when you add to, when you look at what we have here, basically, it accounted for 600 million naira actually in the 2.46 billion naira worth of transactions that we had on Zenith Bank only yesterday. But when you add to what we have on GT Bank, which is also one of the most actively traded stocks in the market, as well as Access Bank and UBA, these are tier 1 names in the market that folks are waiting patiently for their earnings, for half-year earnings and Q2 2020 numbers to come in, hoping that they will be able to get some interim dividends or at least some sort of bonus in the market. That's the reason why we are seeing the interest in these tier 1 names yesterday. This was up yesterday by more than 50 percent. That's the value of transaction. Look at the banking stocks as I've described. Our sector gained some 52 basis points yesterday. Of course, we know that Sterling Bank was up by more than 2%. The managing director, in a disclosure to the stock exchange yesterday or the day before, it shows that the managing director actually increased his stake in this particular company, and that also accounted for the 2.7% gains that we saw on Sterling Bank yesterday. Fidelity Bank was also one of the companies that actually recorded some gains yesterday. Access Bank was up by some 73 basis points yesterday, and of course, GT Bank and Zenith Bank, which recorded more gains. Consumer goods side of the market, we saw some profits taken yesterday. Of course, the transactions in the market yesterday explains the cherry picking on attractive stocks that we've seen in the market lately, and of course, some profits taken. So Nigerian Breweries was one of the companies where we saw profits taken on yesterday, because this is a company that has been recording some gains in recent times, and so that's reduced the performance of the consumer goods sector. Industrial goods side of the market, we saw WAPCO, which was down yesterday by some 0.43 basis points, and that's accounted for the losses that we have in this sector. Insurance side of the market, we seem to be having some kind of cross-dealing on Cornerstone, or some increase of stake in Cornerstone lately. It was up by 9% yesterday. And of course, Lasaco was up by more than 7% yesterday. Put together, we had 89 basis points rise. Now, oil and gas, we saw huge profits taken in this space yesterday. Why did I say that? The day before, Adova had been up by some 10%. And of course, we got all of those gains shaved off yesterday by some smart investors that couldn't wait to take profit. So it reduced all the way from 13 Naira plus to 12 Naira. But we have joining us on phone right now, Mohammed Jami, who is the head of securities dealing at APT Securities and Investments Funds. Jami, thank you for joining us on the program. What are the catalysts that you're looking out for in the market at this point to strengthen these seeming bullish trends that we're beginning to see in the market?
Yes, the bullish trend in the market is still well expected, and we see in the bullish run. Though, markets move in steps and bounds, and in that case, you see some days of gains and some days of loss because of the activities of the traders who want to use the advantage of the bullish trend to take the advantage. To take profit from their taking in the market. So that does not mean that the bullish trend has been halted. No, the bullish trend is still continuing, but for the fact that the market moves in steps and bounds because of the activities of trader and speculator, that is why we are having this negative trend that we have. The last two, the Monday and yesterday, we have a marginal rate in the market.
So I know that investors can't really wait to see the results of the tier one names that we have in the markets, talking about Zenith, GT Bank, Access Bank, and of course UBA. In fact, UBA had put out a notice that their numbers have been approved by the board. So what do you think is really delaying the release of these companies' earnings for the first half of the year?
Yes, this sector, these tier one banks, most of them pay interim dividends for the half year. And remember, it has to be audited before they can pay dividends on the results released so far. And if you look at the results being released by most of these banks, they are even very encouraged. They perform beyond expectation. We were thinking that the COVID-19 lockdown will affect the bottom line of this company. Yes, it affected them, but they were able to cut their costs. So cutting the cost by reducing the level of, the activities during the lockdown, there are some costs that some of these banks were able to cut down, and that made the bottom line to be so impressive. And for this, everybody is expecting that all these banks, especially the tier one banks that pay interim dividends, they are possibly going to replicate what they had in last year's interim dividend. So everybody is confident that whatever the result or whatever the dividend or interim dividend they are going to declare, they are going to at least replicate what they did last year. So
in the preceding years, because this is a historical thing with these companies.
And they are very happy to stay in this company.
All right, Jami, Mohammed, thank you so much for giving us this analysis. I appreciate them. And everyone will continue to keep their fingers crossed as we watch out for the release of their numbers. Jami Mohammed is the head of securities dealing with APT Securities and Fund. Back to you now, Chimeze.
Well, Temple, the unpredictability of the market is unbeatable. So I like that phrase, seeming bullish trend. So let's hope it continues today.
Yeah.
We'll take a break, and when we come back, we'll do an opening call to London, and then back to you, Temple. Thank you for staying tuned. And for updates from the streets of London, we have Simon. Good morning, Simon. Well, UK consumer price inflation jumped to 1% in July from 0.6% in June as lockdown measures eased further. What were the major drivers, and what will this mean for Bank of England's monetary policy direction?
Yeah, economists had expected a rise of 0.7%. The biggest contributor to the rise in inflation was culture and recreation, which includes computer games. It has been boosted by changes in consumer habits caused, of course, by the coronavirus pandemic here. Sterling climbed 0.2% against the dollar, hitting a high of the day after the reports that could come as a relief for the Bank of England policymakers who have cut interest rates to historic lows in a bid to bolster the economy. Inflation has risen in part due to the largest monthly pump price increase in nearly a decade as international oil prices rose from their lows earlier this year. The postponement of clothing sales in preparation for the release of autumn ranges was another factor. While clothing prices fell between June and July this year, the decline was less steep than the 2.9% drop between the 2 months in 2019. Investors have been questioning whether a sudden rise in inflation is on the cards, given the sheer amount of money governments and central banks are showering around the economy. But today's inflation release shows the prices in the UK are certainly bouncing back again. At this stage, many analysts doubt this will prevent the Bank of England providing further support to the economy, but it's one of those where we're going to have to wait and see what happens.
Yeah. Now, more than 35 million discounted meals were claimed in the first 2 weeks of the government's Eat Out to Help Out scheme. How sustainable is this scheme, considering government complaining about liquidity squeeze and talking about ending the furlough?
Yeah, well, the scheme offers customers in restaurants, pubs and cafes 50% off their meal up to a maximum of £10. That's excluding alcohol. It runs every Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday in August to encourage support for the hospitality sector, which has been really hard hit, of course, with people not wanting to go out and mix with other people. With 1.8 million jobs in the food and beverage sector and a high number of those people in those jobs low paid and furloughed, of course, since the coronavirus crisis started. The government hopes the scheme will encourage people to return to their pre-crisis habits. More people in restaurants obviously means more staff being unfurloughed, etc. So it kind of all works in this circular way. More than 85,000 restaurants have registered for the scheme, and according to data, it's helped restaurants to be 27% fuller on average than they were during the period in August of last year. The government has set aside £500 million to fund the scheme, which comes on top, of course, of the £2.5 billion set aside to cut the VAT on hospitality, accommodation and attractions to 5%. It just runs for the month of August, so the test of whether the discounts will have been a success will come in September after they've been withdrawn. And it'll be interesting to see if people will return to restaurants and pubs when that discount isn't in place. So in terms of talking about sustainability, it's only for the month, this month of August. It ends next month in September. So I think it's probably a small drop in the ocean compared to the huge amounts of money that the government is spending on furlough.
All right, we'll watch and see what happens. Anyway, rail fares are set to rise by another 1.6% in January, adding about £100 to the cost of many annual season tickets. But the passenger watchdog, campaigners and unions have all called on the UK government to abolish the policy of annual fare rises at a time when passenger numbers on the railway have plummeted because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Do you see their call holding water?
Yeah, well, the trains are very, very empty at the moment. If you go on the tube or the train network here in the UK, you often get the whole carriage to yourself because people are just scared about travelling on public transport. About half of rail fares are pegged to July's retail price index, which defied economists' forecasts and rose from 1.1% a month ago. Office Rail and Road figures show that between January 95, when the network was privatised, and January 2020, average fares have increased in real terms by 21%. It has been the policy of successive governments to switch the burden of funding the railways from taxpayers to passengers, although the decision to take on the cost risks of rail franchises due to the coronavirus pandemic has altered the balance in recent months. Passenger groups, as you said there, do want an overhaul of the whole fares system. The government is being urged to launch a national scheme for flexible rail tickets, as many people will continue working from home after the virus ends. A lot of people at the moment obviously staying at home, and a lot of employers and offices saying it makes more sense for people to stay at home if they can, or at least split the week between home and the office. The Rail, Maritime and Transport Union says the move would save commuters thousands of pounds. There is speculation ministers are considering delaying the 1.6% rise due to low passenger numbers. Generally agreed, I think, that the current system is pretty antiquated and outdated and needs changing. However, I think this particular fare rise will go ahead, as running the railways is an increasingly expensive process, and it's not like the government's rolling in money at the moment. But the rise may be delayed to try and encourage people back onto the trains. As I said, very empty at the moment, and anything that the government can do to sort of get a bit more revenue going, I think would be helpful. So they may well delay that 1.6% rise, but I don't think they'll abolish it.
All right, Simon. Well, we hope to get more update on how the markets are reacting to the inflation number later in the day.
Thanks a lot.
And back here on the debt and currency market, Temple.
Thank you, Chimeze. Let's quickly talk about the unlisted securities market, which was down by 1.11% yesterday. This was as a result of some profits taken on a couple of companies that reduced the market capitalization to 521.9 billion naira in the market. Now, look at the volume of transactions. It was huge yesterday. 534,500 units of shares traded. 500,000 units of these came from WAMCO as a result of some profit taken. WAMCO had opened at 127 naira, 5 kobo, and closed the day at 120 naira due to profits taken. The rest of the 34,500 units actually came from the sale of some shares as well on NDEP, and that's Niger Delta Exploration Production Company, which accounted for 2 of the 3 deals that we had here, because just 1 deal went straight to WAMCO, which is your milk maker. Talk about the debt side of the market. FGN bonds yesterday saw a mixed bag of transactions, 16 deals in total, but we saw some actions around the 2026 paper, accounting for 1.70 billion naira worth of transactions yesterday only. Prices declined a little because, again, folks are really not so bullish. Everyone is waiting and watching what will happen today at the auction that has been carried out by the Debt Management Office. We have some quotes across the 2035 paper yesterday and across other benchmark bonds that you have. 2035 and 2049 got some quotes yesterday, but here you got some more actions. Look at the NCB space. That's where you have some more retail cherry picking yesterday in the markets. Total was 1.65 compared to 2-something billion that we did in the preceding trading session. Folks are checking out the short papers, the short-term papers. But of course, we know that here yesterday, the July 2021 paper, we had between 2.27 and 2.91% yield spread yesterday in the market. Auctions, open market side of the market, open market operations, we actually got some more bullish trend yesterday as a result of the maturities that we saw yesterday. Let's talk about the bond auction of today with Chioma Odu, who is a fixed income dealer with GT Bank. Chioma, thanks for joining us on the program. Could you quickly tell us what to expect from the bond auction of today?
Good morning. It's going to be a quiet market today at the fixed income space, as all focus will be on the bond auction today. 150 billion on offer across 4 maturities, which are all reopening. We expect that the rates will close at the last auction levels, which was at the range of 6 to 9%.
Okay, so we know that this week so far, there hasn't been any OMO auction from the CBN, but basically you've been able to, folks have been able to reinvest the maturity from Tuesday's maturity in the market. What else are you looking out for in the market for the rest of the week?
Well, there's still going to be the bullish trend as we continue to see scarcity of fixed income, especially at the T-bill curve, where we've seen investors try to invest. 48 billion matured yesterday at the OMO. There was no more maturity. We expect that we're going to see a lot of bargain buys at the fixed income space. Rates are currently trading at a low of 3%, at the short end of the civil curve, and then at a high of 5.
And I wish you a profitable day, Chioma Udu, GT Bank fixed income dealer. Everyone at the stock exchange is actually waiting and watching when your bank's numbers will be released for the H1 2020. Wish you a profitable day one more time.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Chimeze is back to you.
Well, the day is bright, and hopefully it will be bright at the markets. And mind you, I love the way you call that billion. All right, Temple. On that note, we draw the curtain on today's edition of the program. Thank you for watching. I'm Chimeze Obi Iwago.